Hello, everyone. It's another episode of Unturned Pages, and Jenny is feeling under the weather, so she's in the chats helping out tonight. And Derek's being Derek; he's just chilling. He's been working over 50 hours, so I understand that because I've been working a lot of overtime myself for the past year. But we have a very special guest tonight. Derek being Derek. So I did want to kind of bring up something new that happened for Unturned Pages, and that is that we are now partners with Breaking Fate Entertainment and Breaking Fate Radio. So now we will be live here on Unturned Pages, on our YouTube page, all of our other radio networks that we do as well, now along with Breaking Fate Entertainment on the YouTube and page, along with Breaking Fate Radio. So make sure that you guys are following all of these pages, and thank you so much to Willie Adkins for the opportunity. We appreciate you, and we want to thank all our sponsors: Small Town Productions, Larry Eisler, Reaper Paranormal, and we also have some other things coming up with Breaking Fate Entertainment after we just had the Paracon. If you didn't go this year, definitely make sure to get out there next year. It was a great Paracon. Jenny did a phenomenal job running it. Very much so fun. And we are going to be also having a Witches and Wellness Expo coming up in July, I believe. Let me double check that. So we also, let's see. July 11th is the Witches and Wellness Expo. And also, 11th and 12th. We're going to be on Booze on the Battleship, May 1st through the 3rd in Wilmington, North Carolina, repping Breaking Fate Entertainment, Unturned Pages, Eternal Paranormal. It's going to be the biggest thing that Eternal Paranormal has done thus far as like a Paracon, Expo, all that above. So it's going to be so much fun. It's going to be a historical vacation for my family as well, because we're bringing the kids. So they're super excited. I'm super excited. Yep. But with all that being said, Jenny also has some other stuff coming up. She's popping up here. So she has a paranormal investigation event with Reaper Paranormal overnight at the Old Washoe Club, May 24th in Virginia City, Nevada. And then Nevada State Prison. And that is May 23rd, 2026 of this year. So if you guys are interested in joining Jenny and Reaper Paranormal, go on out there and grab up your tickets. So that's the Witches and Wellness Expo, and it's all about holistic wellness. July 11th and 12th at the All Guild Hall, the same place that the Obscura Paracon was just at. We have special guest April 12th. Larry Eisler is going to be on. He's filmmaker, author, and investigator. And then on April 19th, we have the lovely Heather Rebel. She's a paranormal investigator and author as well. And she is from the South. She's a badass. We got Grady Hughes coming up April 26th from Grey Duck Paranormal. And we have Nick Sarlo on May 17th, if I can see that right, because I'm blind as a bat and I need glasses. And Derek just joined.
I was watching another show and they wrapped it up, so here I am. Seems like you're doing a dang good job here.
It's all Jenny. It's nothing to do with me.
Is she running background?
She is.
Jenny. Hey, let's not. If Jenny wins this Horn Paranormal equipment in this raffle, I am plunging my ass into the Mississippi.
You will not.
I know.
You don't like getting anything dirty on you.
She does. I won't never do a raffle with her in one anymore. Nope. Jenny's in it. Count me out.
So we got Ari. She's up on her stage now. Welcome, Ari.
Hi, Alicia. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's awesome to meet you and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I like to describe myself as a lawyer gone rogue. So basically I got my law degree, did a bunch of impressive stuff while I was in law school, and got to the end of it and said, not really for me. I set new case precedent. I can retire. And since then, I have been on some pretty marvelous journeys, one of which includes some paranormal investigation and research.
Wow. So you made it all the way through law school?
Yep. Got to the graduation stage and everything. Was going to take the bar. But at the time, my mother had been sick for a very long time. And at the point that it came to sign up for the bar exam, it was apparent that she was either going to pass right before the bar or right after the bar. So none of those are really conducive conditions for studying for one of the hardest exams in the country. And I said, you know what? I'm going to put it off. And all of a sudden, this weight lifted off my shoulders. I was like, hey, living past 30 sounds like a really good idea. Maybe I should just not be a lawyer. And I haven't turned back. It was one of those things that the universe nudged me in the right direction. And after a while, when the universe keeps giving you those nudges, you have to say, okay, you know what you're doing. I trust you.
That's insane. All that work and then to switch to paranormal. That's awesome. Like, it's cool, but it's like, oh my gosh. Do you still have college bills to pay? Like your like loans and stuff?
Yeah. I just say that it's an investment in myself that because the biggest question I get a lot is, what, you don't use your degree? And the reality is that I do. I use my degree every day because it reshaped and reformed the way that I think and I approach issues and problems, or, I analyze things. So it's come in handy and useful in a whole litany of ways, not only in the paranormal, but also in my career in entertainment. So when I'm doing production work, all that analysis, when I'm performing, the way that you're able to dissect situations and use context clues to try to piece together a story, all these things I learned in law. So while I don't necessarily use my degree in the traditional sense, I'm using my degree every moment of every day.
Nice.
That is so true, because you literally, like, you get a few answers like here and there on a piece of equipment, and it's a big puzzle piece, but like, you knowing how to do that helps out so much more to like make sense of what they're trying to communicate.
Yeah, and it also influenced my philosophy towards the paranormal, because one of the first cases that we read in my property law class was Stambovsky versus Ackley, also known as the Ghostbusters decision. So a house in Nyack, New York, which is not far from my hometown, was deemed haunted as a matter of law. So a lot of people like to take that and run and say that New York State has deemed ghosts as existing within actuality. The New York State legal system say ghosts are real. Not quite. The whole the whole philosophy behind that case is that it is part contract and part property. So going into it was that because this house had such a substantial reputation for being haunted, it was on ghost tours. People in the town talked about, like, oh, that's the ghost house. It was in Reader's Digest. All these other things were saying that this house is haunted, that it doesn't matter whether or not the ghosts actually exist. What matters is that we have put so much into this story of it being haunted that it might as well be haunted. So that always really intrigued me. It's like, what if we approach it through that lens, that it doesn't matter whether or not these entities actually exist? And for the record, I do think that they exist. I think there are things we don't understand. But it puts in an interesting logical framework where now you don't have such a hard burden, right? You don't have to prove so much of anything. It's what is the impact of these stories? How do they impact how we interact with each other? How do we interact with our history? How do we interact with the location? So now we've deemed that these ghosts actually impact us on a real level, irregardless of whether they actually exist or not.
So I'm going to ask a couple questions before we go back to what you were just discussing. So what does legally haunted mean?
Legally haunted is the philosophy that states that we are influenced by the paranormal, whether or not it actually exists, because these stories influence the way that we perceive our reality, right? So even if you were to take it that none of these ghosts exist, right? These are all just made up stories. They still impact the way we interact and the way we perceive our reality. We've learned lessons from them, right? They're almost like folk tales at this point, where even if they don't actually exist, we still take away something that's tangible, right? Like, even if the most haunted asylum in the world isn't actually haunted by real ghosts, it's still haunted by that history. And we've been impacted by those stories, right? So even if you don't have that creepy little kid that's running down the hallway singing, Ring Around the Rosie, we associate that story with the story of real people who actually existed. And then because of those interactions, we are going further into their history. And hopefully, in my opinion, we have a renewed sense of making sure that history doesn't repeat itself, that we don't want these ghosts to go living on forever, right? We want to take the lesson and apply it.
Just like the stone tape theory, like alongside with the insane asylums that are open now for public investigations, like that has so much stuff just lingering behind because of the stuff that they endured and went through mentally and physically. And now to go from back then to how it is now with individuals with developmental disabilities, people with alcoholism and stuff, like we are trying to repeat that past. Like we've gotten rid of restraints, lobotomies, electroshock therapy, and stuff like that. And we make sure that they are fed well, that they are treated like a human being, and that they have enough staff on hand back to like when they didn't have that back then. So was it always like you were interested in the paranormal, you had your own experiences growing up, or was it something that you just decided that you wanted to get into that started this whole legally haunted aspect of your life?
So I did have experiences when I was a child. Like I saw my grandmother after she passed. Like the school I went to was allegedly haunted, and I saw some stuff. But I was also raised very Catholic, so that caused some tension, right? Because you don't like the biggest fear that I had growing up was demons and being possessed by demons and all that kind of stuff, right? So there was that inherent tension. it was like a morbid fascination. I veered more into liking dark stuff, like, Tim Burton, like that kind of stuff. It wasn't until I was going into my first year of law school that I got into more of the formal paranormal stuff, right? I had a passing interest in tarot cards, but because of my Catholic upbringing, was also terrified of them, right? And it was like 2 or 3 weeks before I'm supposed to move into my law school dorm, and I'm just wandering around Barnes and Noble with a friend, right? We do that thing where we separate and we'll meet back in the middle. And something's telling me to go down the mystic aisle or whatever they call it. And so I'm kind of looking at the tarot cards and I'm like, maybe I'll get one, maybe I won't, I don't know. Isn't it bad luck to buy your own? And then all of a sudden this deck falls off the shelf and hits me in the head. And so I'm kind of shaking myself off, and I looked down, up, and I was like, you know what? I gotta buy it now. And that was the first of many times that when I wasn't getting the memo, the universe decided the best way was to, get in through the old noggin. And
like,
that's
yeah.
It's like, you listening? Like, I'm thick-headed, so sometimes they have to really get in there. And then also too, my law school was haunted. We would every day people would talk about their experiences. It was something that was very common to speak about. We talked about the Revolutionary soldiers that lived in our room, the nuns that lived in our rooms because it was a former convent, and all other kinds of strange stuff that would go on. So it just became more and more normal for me over the course of my legal career.
Wow. So do you still have that deck of tarot cards?
I do. It's
end
the
up
golden.
teaching yourself how to do it?
Yeah, that was honestly, tarot was a really good way for me to ground myself, especially because law school is very stressful. So became my meditation technique. And now I have a whole collection of tarot cards. Like, that's very much something that like I'm into. Not in any kind of not like, hey, I'm formally doing tarot readings type of way, but it's something that I very much enjoy and I get a lot of fulfillment out of.
I bet I see like a bunch of girls hanging out in your dorm wanting tarot readings during college. Am I right?
Yeah.
It was a tarot card party.
I mean, I would, when I was in law school, like, people would come over, like, my, where I was living, like my room or whatever, and I would do like casual reading, stuff like that. Some people still reach out to me on occasion and be like, hey, do you mind throwing a few cards type of stuff? Because I always like to think of it as, at baseline, good psychology, because they're all archetypes, right? It's Jungian theory. It's, repeating patterns that we see just as part of the human experience, and it's an objective third-party image, and it's what you get out of it, right? At best, it's mysticism, which I think also will link back to the Jungian archetype things. Nothing is ever lost, just recycled. So I would like to play that push and pull logic game where it's like, well, if I push it to this logical extreme, what happens? If I push it to this logical extreme, what happens? So I find that it gives that nice grounding middle section where you're never too far into skepticism and never too far into mysticism.
Derek had a question. Is Legally Haunted a show that we can watch on a platform?
Not yet, but maybe someday. I've been Legally Haunted is just kind of like my social media presence for the paranormal. So like I'll post little things from investigation. Tomb Tales is another one that I have. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to do for a hot minute, where I go find interesting tombstones and I just research them and I tell their story. Some people are well known, others are hidden heroes. So I don't have any formal shows. Thank you.
It does sound like a cool name for like a show that you can watch on like Stream Beacon or something like that,
Maybe, you know what? I think it's one of those things that the universe is kind of knocking again. So this might be my sign. Do I give up? So I technically can't give out legal advice because I'm not a licensed attorney, but my free legal haunting advice is to haunt freely and openly to your heart's content.
And don't break and enter. Always
Don't
get
break and
permission before going into an abandoned building. She said,
well, I always like to use, attractive nuisance as a very good defense. Like if you're not doing anything to keep it closed off from people getting in, then it's just an attractive nuisance. And that's that.
That is very true. Like you're not going in there damaging property and stuff,
Especially too, some of the places like that are more historic that have fallen, unfortunately, by the wayside. It's really sad to see how much history has been lost or destroyed because, you can't have nice things because of people. So places that I almost make a point sometimes that places that should be preserved, I purposefully go into and to make a point. It's just like, we could be using this as a teaching opportunity, as a way to keep the past present, right? So we don't go back 50, 75, 100, 200 years, but instead it's just a place for the local high schoolers to come, drink and do graffiti and stuff, which I think is the true tragedy.
Yeah. Especially like with grave robbers and ones that go in and they destroy freaking headstones and stuff. Is sad. Like I ended up investigating at a local cemetery. It's called Chipionic Cemetery. And I was walking through using my SB7 and I was like, what happened to this one? Because it was knocked over and it says it's a tragedy or something like that. It come through. It was sad, to get that to come through.
Because they like us, they know when they're being, when they're not being respected properly. So I think it shows that they have an awareness of what's going on around them.
Yeah.
And I see Jenny has a question here. What are your thoughts on Penhurst being torn down? I don't know very many specifics, to be honest with you. So there's always the question of, especially too, if it's state property or municipal property, the tax man and the money man always comes for their share. So that's usually a big concern. And also too, like you have people like me who go into places like that, which could pose a safety hazard, especially if places like that are more dilapidated. I'd be curious to see what they're going to do in light of it being torn down to preserve the massive amount of history that is there, because it being torn down doesn't necessarily have to be, it doesn't have to be something that's tragic. Also, your cat's adorable. They're turning it into a data center. Oh my God. Okay. I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. That's a sign of the times now, ain't it?
If you want a data center with ghosts, you're going to get one.
It's because it's not only, it's, again, it comes back to that whether or not they exist in actuality or not is irrelevant, especially when you consider is that respecting the history that exists there. So on one end of the spectrum, I think it's a really bad idea to put a data center where there's been years upon years of tragedy and pain and suffering. I just don't think, if you're going purely on vibes, that's not passing the vibe check. But if you push it to the other logical extreme where, ghost stories are just stories and they don't actually exist, it still seems like a grave disservice to the sacrifices that those individuals made for us to progress forward within mental health science. And it seems like that's just it's money over people and it's money over history, because that's all a data center is. It's just it's money grabbing.
Derek had another question. Oh, Jenny must have been clicking on it when I went to. What's your favorite paranormal tool to use while investigating? Is it yourself, mind, body, senses? Seems that you have a lot of background in law, or do you have a favorite piece of equipment?
I like to mix and match depending. I do sometimes just rely on myself. I don't like to call myself a psychic or anything like that. That's just a personal preference for me. But I do find that when I allow myself to just be like, I wonder what happens when I turn left. Like you find funny coincidences. But I'll also use Spirit Talker is one that I like to use, because I can just put that in my pocket and, go for a walk and see what comes through. Ghost Box is one that I like to use a lot. You can get a lot of cool stuff on that one. I forget the name of the other one that I use. Ghost hunting tools I use. Those are my main ones. And then, EMF detectors, that kind of stuff. But I look at it more as, that's interesting, instead of like anything being like hard evidence. Cause I also don't think that I'm not out to prove anything to anybody. You either believe it or you don't. But it's always, I like to have that, that's interesting folder, and then kind of see where the story unravels that way. What are thoughts about the Conjuring house and all that? Ooh, I have many thoughts about the Warrens. So I have not been to the Conjuring house. I've driven in the area of the Conjuring house. But I know there's a lot of real estate drama around the Conjuring house. And I'm be honest with you, when it comes to anything with the Warrens, I give it a side eye. I'm very critical of the Warrens and their research, to be totally honest. I know that's an unpopular opinion.
What's your favorite thing to protect yourself when you go into an investigation? Tom wants to know.
So I have to be honest. I should probably be better at doing the protective stuff before I go into places, because I tend to just go in with a hope and a prayer. So it's one of those things, like I'll go in and being like, hi, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm just passing through. Please don't hurt me. And I'll be honest with you, that generally works. One time I did, I mess around and I found out at the Belair house. So that was a humbling experience, but largely I go in being like, hey, I'm not here to hurt you. Don't hurt me. Don't follow me home, please. And then we're generally cool.
Tom, he said that guy behind you is kind of scary.
Scary.
He's like scary.
Tom.
Yes, Warrens.
They all say what really happened isn't what the Warrens actually said or did, more bad than good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's whenever you have those high profile cases, I find that tends to be the case. There's already a lore aspect to what we do, because we're dealing with things that you can't see, mostly can't hear, and at best maybe can perceive. So whenever you add a lot of spotlight onto that, it always complicates the issue. And whenever there's kids involved, I tend to be I like to veer away from any kind of spectacle whatsoever, because they're children. They're one of the most vulnerable populations amongst us.
Yeah.
My favorite place to investigate. So my favorite place is the Borland House. Oh, excuse me. The Borland House in Montgomery, New York. That's kind of one of my home away from home. Incredible colonial, Victorian, romance, revival architecture, and amazing spirits and incredible people who work there, both living and deceased. So it's one of my happy places that I go to. Another favorite of mine is Letchworth Village. It is, I'll be honest with you, if I ever meet Zach Baggins, I'm going to have a few strong words for him about how he handled that investigation on Ghost Adventures, because it's a place that's very close to my heart. But I've never had anything bad there. I've only had, good things. So I like to go there a lot, and I like to go hang out with the kids and and talk to them and stuff like that, and just let them know that not everybody is bad.
Mm-hmm. I'm just filling in for Alicia. I would be on tonight, but I'm just not feeling the best. I ate a lot of popcorn earlier at the movie theater, and I'm like, I got a stomach ache a little bit, and I'm like, no. But so I was just wondering, where are you from?
I'm from New York.
Where are you coming out of? I knew it because and you know what? Because I didn't get the very beginning of the show, but it's so funny because I had that, I was like, Boston, New York. You can hear that accent. And I love it because I'm like, I know she's from somewhere, and I was right. Yeah.
I do also love Boston.
Listening to her? Yeah. I was like, she's from New
York. We'll go
have
a cup of coffee sometime.
Cup of coffee. Yeah. I love it. Anyway, I'm going to let her get back on there, but I just had to ask that because I was like, yeah. But anyways, good talking.
Feel better.
I'm back. Sorry.
Welcome back.
What? Okay, so I was gonna ask, my next question was, where was the first place that you investigated at?
So my first formal investigation, like me going in being like, I am going to see if I can, communicate with spirits, was the Shanley Hotel.
Oh.
Yeah, that was my first,
I was thinking of the Stanley. Okay, the Shanley Hotel. Where is that at? I've heard of it.
That's also in New York. That's in oh my gosh, Napanoch? No, Ellenville? Some Catskill region. Totally blanking right now. Sorry, Kelly. It's like Ellenville territory. I'm blanking on what town it's actually in.
Oh wow. It has an Ouija board on the roof.
Yeah. It's a really cool place to investigate.
Like a full-size Ouija board roof?
I think it's on the inside. Jenny, help me out here. It's been a hot minute since I've been there. Phoning a friend. Because last time I was there was last year, 2 years ago.
So what's the history behind the Shanley? She said it's on the roof of the Shanley.
So the Shanley was always a hotel. And it gained in popularity in the late 19th, early 20th century. It was part of, the bootleg ring, had mobsters going through there. The Roosevelt stayed there at one point. So it just had this constant flux of activity. It was a bordello and a brothel because most hotels were at one point or another, if they're from that time period. And it's just known for its massive amounts of activity. It's a great place, and I like to call it the haunted mansion of the Hudson Valley, just because there's got to be at least 99 ghosts in there, if not more, you know.
So it's like this is like your paranormal home for you, would you say? Like one you keep going back to?
I haven't been there in a hot minute, but I do enjoy very much going there. It's probably been a year or two since I've been there. But I would like to go back again soon.
So where is the one place that do you go back to certain locations over and over again? Is there that one for you?
Yeah, the Borland House is one that I go back to all the time. I work in a haunted theater, the Tarrytown Music Hall. I'm part of their overhire crew, so I go there quite frequently. Letchworth, I go back to a lot. I tend to go out to like Eastern Connecticut a lot. Like Mystic, New London area is one of my favorite areas to go to. And there was a good while where I kept going back to Boston. I really, really like Boston. So those are kind of like my paranormal home away from homes, I guess. And I have been to White Hill Mansion for the Paracon, but I haven't been able to investigate there yet. But I've always seen some really cool stuff coming out of there.
Man, you said Letchworth Village. My friend Rob Tomasevich, he used to live in New York. I forgot what area, but that was one that he's been to. He was telling me about, and I was researching. Actually, when we were together, we had a podcast. It was me, Rob Tomasevich, and Adam Ramos, and I was doing like paranormal history, and one of that was like Letchworth Village, and I was remembering, like, just thinking about one of the doctors like kept their brains or whatnot.
Yeah. So Letchworth, Letchworth is a medical time capsule. It's most of what we know about neuroscience, frankly, comes from unethical Nazi experiments and unethical experiments from Letchworth Village. So those stories about brains in jars, babies being born without brain stems and things like that, those are all very much true. The polio vaccine was developed there. It was a hub of medical research. And at the time, it was also revolutionary in its beginning origin because it took a more holistic approach to mental health. They were kind of like, hey, maybe instead of chaining them up and treating them like zoo animals, maybe we, let them have jobs and have a community and have rooms and garden and, do work, things like that. It was one of the Rockefeller projects. And of course, when the state gets involved, things go all sorts of sideways. So, but we owe a lot to Letchworth and the people who were patients there, because it was thanks to their sacrifices and frankly the pain that was inflicted upon them that we were able to make leaps and bounds within neuroscience. And Jenny, I would love to go with you in September. I saw your comment, so consider it booked. Can we go to? So you can walk the grounds of Letchworth. So Letchworth takes up technically 3 towns. Some of the buildings have been refurbished. So like there are town hall, community center. Like I used to rehearse in Letchworth. Parts of the renovated part. Some of them have been turned into schools. And where like the hospital is and stuff like that, like it's a walking trail now. So a lot of people, like myself included, will take their dogs and walk there, things like that. You're not allowed to go into the abandoned buildings. And some of them, frankly, you really don't want to go into because unfortunately they are an arsonist's, dream come true. Just, acres of land and acres of abandoned buildings that you can, take a match to. So some of them are structurally very unsafe.
I can't remember. It was a person on YouTube, and he ended up doing a video investigation there, and the building's really grown over with vines and plant life and nature, even from back when that was aired, and that was probably like 6 years ago now, I'm guessing it was. So I can't imagine now what it would look like. Definitely a good spot for that to happen.
And there's also been, I'm very happy to see that there has been a big push within the community to preserve the history. So there's been the Letchworth Preservation Project, which is a grassroots organization, and they are doing some phenomenal work to make sure that that history is preserved. So they're doing tours now, like certain buildings they're granting access into on these tours. They're holding meetings and lectures and showing photos and documents that have been traditionally lost to time. They will also accept any document that you might have with no questions asked, because that is something that was also very common with people breaking into the buildings, because they basically up and left one day. So all these records were still in filing cabinets. So it was very common for people to break in, take the records as a souvenir or a trophy of some kind, and hold on to them. So the Letchworth Preservation Project has started an initiative where you can bring those documents and they're not going to ask you anything. So we can now make sure that it's all preserved.
That's great. I love that. That's wonderful that they're doing that.
They're doing
Jenny
really
asked,
great work.
Jenny asked, what is your advice for someone entering the paranormal or seasoned paranormal investigator?
Ooh, what is my advice? Trust, allow the other side to guide you. So what I like to do is I like to generally, as much as I can, not go in with a plan. Like for example, when I went down south, when I went to Georgia and South Carolina for investigation for the Haunted Travel Anthology, I was like, okay, I know I want to go to the Pirate House and I know I want to go just explore Savannah. Other than that, I had no plans. And because of that, I feel I got so much more out of it because I just allowed my intuition to guide me. So I think we need to give ourselves more credit that we can feel this in our bodies. We can understand it in parts of our mind that might not be necessarily at the forefront. But if we just kind of say, give up control and not focus so much on proving the existence of the paranormal, that we might start to understand it more.
So my question, you just brought up the Haunted Anthology Travels. What is that? What was that?
So that was Sam Baltruse's project. He curated different stories from different investigators from their haunted travels. So for the first volume, he had reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, do you have a story you'd like to submit?" And I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, I've been around New England a lot. Like, I'm sure I can write something." And he's like, "Well, be honest, I'm having a lot from New England. Do you ever think about going someplace else?" And I was like, you know what? I haven't been south of the Mason-Dixon line in a meaningful way. Like, other than going to Florida, I haven't really explored the South. So I, reached out to some people. I'm like, hey, where do you think I should go? And the two top places were Savannah and Charleston. So I kind of split the baby and I stayed in, hopefully I'm going to say this right, Yamasee, South Carolina, which is kind of halfway between Savannah and Charleston. And then I just split my time that way. And honestly, I wouldn't have done it but for Sam.
That's awesome. I love Charleston. It's so beautiful. Derek and I actually, on our honeymoon, we ended up going there and doing some travels around Charleston. So beautiful and so much history there. It's just breathtaking and very hot.
I went in December. Like I did that on purpose. I was like, I finished the semester and I was like, I'm not going down south anywhere after February. So I might as well go in the winter time. And it was quite lovely then. But I can only
Yeah,
imagine what it would be like in August. And I was just like, no thanks.
we were there in July.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a hot one. Derek asked, have you ever tried investigating any of the places that were involved, like gangs of New York or anything?
Oh, like gangs, like Bill the Butcher gangs in New York? No, I haven't. I should though, because I do like that. I do like that history. So that's something that I haven't investigated much of New York City. Like aside from some theaters, I haven't done much in the city. So that might be on my to-do list for 2026.
Oh, there was Angie and Shane McLean said they live 1.5 hours from Charleston and Beaufort, South Carolina. Oh, hey, love you, Shane. Savannah Ghost Tour with Patrick. Great. Want to check out more places there.
Savannah, I adore Savannah. Savannah is one of the places that I miss frequently. I really do. Great people, great energy. And just so much natural beauty. Like it was absolutely breathtaking being there. Oh, that would be cool. Bringing a spirit box to Ellis Island. I wonder if we'd be able to imagine being able to hit up your ancestors that came through there. Like great grandma comes through or something like that. That'd be dope.
Yeah.
That'd be really interesting. I also haven't been to Ellis Island. That's someplace I should also go to. You'd think that I'm right here. I should go to these places, but I guess that falls under when you're a local and that's in a weird middle ground tourist area. But I would love to go to Ellis Island. That's a really cool idea.
I was going to ask you, it seems like you know a lot of history about locations and stuff. Is history one of your big things that you love? And do you utilize the history when you're going into a location to investigate?
Yeah, I've always been a really, really big history nerd. Ever since I was a little kid. Once I started reading Madeline, I of course had to go and research all the history of Paris. And then once we started studying the American Revolution, I had to learn everything about the American Revolution. That's always been something that's been really important and special to me. And I do find that it comes in handy when going into investigation. Again, like I said, my philosophy isn't really going in there to prove anything. But I do like to have some research done beforehand because I figure if they do exist, right? If these ghosts are real, it would be nice to go in there and be able to have a conversation with them and at least have a baseline of, hey, maybe here's some common cast of characters that we can talk about. That happened at the Samuel Miller Mansion when I was there with Ron Iacovetti and Lourdes Gonzalez were doing Staticom there. And I was and I know that George Shaw had been through there, and I had just maybe a week or two before that investigated the Absecon lighthouse that he was the architect of, and later became the general of Gettysburg. So I was like, hey, do you guys know the name George Shaw? And something came through the Staticom going, George? So I always found that really, really fun, where it's you can, if you go in knowing a little bit about who you're talking to on the other side, that might incite them to more conversation instead of the same, can you prove to me you're here? Knock 3 times. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, if you come into my house and you start saying something like, prove to me you're here, I'm gonna be like, no. And, sit there with my arms crossed. But if you come in and you're like, hey, so I read about blah, blah, blah. Do you know them? I'd be more, incentivized to have that conversation. So I kind of keep that mindset whenever I'm going to an investigation. So the research isn't to really prove anything. It's in hopes that maybe I'll be able to have a better conversation with whatever might be there.
Yeah. Jenny asked, do you research before investigating or after?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Because I do find that there have been times that my investigation fueled a different path of research. So I'll kind of generally go in with what I like to call like the Wikipedia overview. You know, I'm not doing like hardcore academic research, but I'm doing some due diligence just so I'm familiar with what I'm walking into. And then after that, sometimes more often than not, the investigation will kind of give me more of a direction to research.
I was going to say, so do you feel like knowing the history of a location kind of goes hand in hand into the legally haunted aspect?
It definitely does, because a big part of that philosophy is the backstory and the reputation. So knowing the history helps to influence why we have these stories outside of people say that they're experiencing it, right? Like, you know, places that are old and have history, they tend to have more ghost stories, right? So it definitely helps when you're going in, fueling that mindset of trying to parse out what are we getting from these stories and what about it is fueling, the paranormal activity in the area.
So do you have any upcoming investigations? Do you do any kind of events? Do you vend at any events or whatnot? What do you have coming up for this year into next?
I don't really do events like that. I kind of just do my own thing, or I'll do it with, with investigators that I'm friends with or that, I respect. I kind of do it just whenever I can type of situation. So I don't vend events. I don't, curate events or anything like that. In terms of any investigations I have coming up, I'm going to let the other side tell me. They'll let me know when the time is right. I know my friend Henry from the Borland House is getting antsy because he keeps the name Henry keeps popping up for me. So I know he's wanting me to come back for a visit. So that'll probably be my first one that I'll put in an active effort to make happen.
Is there any time that you've had like something funny happen to you during like an investigation, like from spirits, or like just something funny that you did or somebody else did that just made you laugh so incredibly like hard? I love having fun investigating. So like that's one of the things we like, to make each other laugh. We like to jump scare each other. So I have to ask that question.
I find that in my experience, a lot of times that ghosts are very sassy. Like there have been times where, you're interacting with the spirit box and stuff like that, and they're giving you responses that you're like, okay, queen, like go off. Like they'll sass you, they'll joke with you. There's one recording from the Shanley too, where somebody made a joke and the ghost box laughed back. This one time I was in Letchworth. I forget where we were walking, and it was a group of people, and most of them I hadn't investigated with before I was invited to join the investigation. And we both rounded the corner, and I'm pretty sure I have it on film somewhere, and we scared each other, and our phones flew in the air. So it was like just like free falling. We're like, all right, like the ghosts haven't scared us once, but we scared each other. We got that in the books. And like there was one time in or Mid-Orange Correctional. We were in like the synagogue area, and we were dancing with the spirits. Like the cat ball started going nuts when we started playing music, and we were kind of just dancing with the ghosts. So that was something that was really fun, and that was almost healing in a way, because it's nice to know that, because I feel sometimes one of my biggest gripes with the paranormal is that we focus so much on it being scary or evil, but you have instances like that where we were having basically one big party. Like we were bridging the gap between this side and the other side through something like that we share in common, which is music and dancing. And I really think that we should focus more on that within the paranormal community.
Yes, we like using music during investigations too. We actually were playing like Get Low or something like that when we were at Edinburgh Manor. And Kat Armstrong, the tour guide, she was there too. We were having a freaking blast, and they're probably like, what is this kind of music, you know, from back in their time period?
It's like a cultural exchange almost, right? Like, because you play music from their time, you play music from our time, and it's like having a conversation with them.
Yeah. Have you ever been to New Orleans?
No, I want to so bad. One of my my childhood best friend and I, um, we were planning a trip to go in the near future, because they have been, I haven't been yet. So that's definitely on my bucket list. And I 1000% approve of playing Pink Pony Club in a Catholic church. That's awesome.
That's hilarious. Was this church shut down or was it active, Jenny? Like,
They weren't
oh,
happy.
yeah, I bet. Oh, it was in Billy Creek Village.
Where's Billy Creek Village?
It's in Indiana. I
Okay,
don't remember what city though. But yeah, it's a bunch of different villages like Old Town,
that's cool.
Rockville, Indiana. 17th century twerker. Right down the road from Indiana State Sanatorium.
Oh, so they got like they got like a spooky strip.
Yeah. So where can everybody find you, Ari?
So I'm on Facebook as Ari Spence. I'm on Instagram and TikTok as Legally Haunted. Also Tomb Tales. And then my one that's been, you know, my social media since forever, since Instagram first came out, is Legally Punk. So you can kind of see the theme here.
You said
Haunted
Tomb
Jail.
Tales is on Facebook.
Tomb Tales is on it's on Facebook and Instagram. My poor neglected baby. I haven't done a Tomb Tale in a hot minute. Although I have no excuse. I do have a backlog of content that I can do. So that's, you know, again, the universe is kind of like, hi.
So do you ever like restore any tombstones going along with the Tomb Tales to help like tell the stories if you can't like make it out or whatnot?
I haven't done that, although I do know somebody who does do like tombstone cleaning. But I do know there is, I don't know I can't remember what their social media handle is, but there is somebody that they do go and clean the tombstones while talking about the history. I just don't remember their names. I know they do a lot of like military families and things like that. My big thing with Tomb Tales is generally the way I go about it is I'll just go to a cemetery. Sometimes it's a famous cemetery. Sometimes it's just one that I found while I was out on the road. and I'll just kind of wander around and again, like be led by my intuition. Like, hey, what happens if I go down this row? Type of stuff. And if I see an interesting headstone, I'll look them up, because generally if you had an interesting headstone, you more than likely had an interesting life. And that methodology has really worked for me. I've found some incredible people that, history might have gotten, left by the wayside, but their story is still there, and it's contained between those words of, here lies, or, rest in peace. So that's just kind of the way that I go about it. It's just, I found them, they want their story told, and now it's time to share it.
I absolutely love that, because a lot of these headstones and these buried people who used to be once living, kind of sounded weird when I said that, but that they don't have anybody that is still living to come out and visit them anymore, and then they just get forgotten about. And then, weather takes over their headstones and whatnot. So I think it's nice that you bring up those people and honor them. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you, but I like to think that it's an honor in of itself, because I feel that I learned so much from their stories and from them, that I think it's one of those reciprocal service things, right? Because I'm doing them the honor of making sure that they're remembered, but they're doing me the honor of teaching me something important that now I get to go share with other people. And we make sure that, the same things that, the good things keep repeating and the bad things don't. So it's one of those reciprocal honors.
That's awesome. That's so awesome of you. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about before we end the show?
I think it's just important that we're not in a court of law, right? We're in the paranormal. And I think sometimes we get so focused on proving, right? Like, I have to prove that ghosts are real. I have to prove that this location is haunted, that we forget that it's important just to experience it and say, and at a certain point say, it doesn't matter whether or not it exists. It doesn't matter whether or not I prove that it exists. What can I learn from this? And how can we make sure that we are working towards a better future? I think that if we put that more in the forefront of the paranormal, I frankly think that overall society would be a better place.
I agree with that. I honestly feel like we don't get too much time in these locations. So, as far as like trying to record and stuff, like being more present and like enjoying the moment of being there and interacting, and try to make most of the time that you have while you're there with them is something really big for me as well. So I 100% agree with you. I wanted to say thank you so much for. Sorry, go ahead. I cut you off. I'm lagging.
I was agreeing with you.
Well, I wanted to say thank you so much, Ari, for coming on. I really enjoyed hanging out with you.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was incredible hanging out with you and talking with y'all. And thank you so much for the conversation. I love these moments.
Well,
and I love
we appreciate you so much. Yeah, he's being a big baby. I'm going to be making sure I'm going to go follow you on your Facebook page and all of that, and look forward to catching up with you.
Yes, please stay in touch. I would love to go investigate some Midwest stuff, and then you come out here and I'll show you some of the East Coast.
Yes, we haven't been to New York, so I would totally love to do that. And you are more than welcome to come investigate in the Midwest with us for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Aaliyah.
Well, have a good night. Thank
Thank
you.
you too. Bye, y'all.
Bye. All right. That was Ari Spence and with Legally Haunted. She is really cool. I like her a lot. Good vibes. Definitely good vibes. Next week, we have Larry Eisler on the 11th for our podcast at 8 p.m. Central Time. But I want to say thank you again, Ari, for coming on. You're a wonderful, wonderful person. So glad to have met you, been able to chat with you tonight. Make sure that you go follow her on Facebook, Tomb Tales, Legally Haunted, and thank you to all of our sponsors. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and end the show. Thank you all for watching.